Omega-5 fatty acids have been attracting a lot of research attention for their benefits for brain longevity and function, especially nano omega-5. But what is nano omega-5 and how is it better for your brain than other types of omega-5? Hi, I'm Dr. Patricia Shelton, lead medical communicator for Tahiro. And let's take a look at this article here on Tahiro's website about nano omega-5. So when we're thinking about having any substance benefit the brain, whether that's a nutrient from food, a nutrient from supplements, a pharmaceuticals or medication, anything, we need to make sure that that substance is able to access brain cells. And it turns out that the best way to do that is to package that beneficial substance in the form of nanoparticles. And that's what nano omega-5 means, nanoparticles of omega-5 fatty acids. And so what are nanoparticles? Well, these are very, very, very tiny particles. It would take anywhere between 1,000 to 100,000 of these all stacked up just to equal the width of a single sheet of paper. So we're talking about really tiny kind of little packages of omega-5 fatty acids. And then they're wrapped in a layer of lipids, so fats, right? It's a little shell around the outside of that teeny, teeny particle. And that shell, the chemical makeup of the fatty acids in that shell, makes sure that the particle is soluble in water. And this is actually going to be crucial. I'll explain why in just a second. We can put almost anything into nanoparticles, nutrients, supplements, medications, almost anything, right? And this is something that is actually being done a lot now in order to help more beneficial substances access the brain. So how is this helpful? Well, let's think about what happens when you take a supplement. So you swallow a capsule. What's the first thing that has to happen? Whatever's inside of that capsule needs to get from your digestive tract, so out of your gut into your bloodstream. And that is actually, it's surprising how little of many supplements actually makes it out of the gut into the bloodstream, right? It's very common that a lot of what you take in a supplement is actually not even absorbed and it just passes right on through the digestive tract and out the other end. Doesn't benefit you, right? We need it to be absorbed in order to get benefit from it. And it turns out that nanoparticles, especially when we're talking about a fatty acid, something that's fat soluble, it's not super well absorbed into the digestive tract normally. Nanoparticles of those types of substances are much better able to cross the lining of the gut and pass into the bloodstream. Okay, so now it's in your bloodstream. What's next? It needs to stay dissolved in your bloodstream so it can be transported through the body to different organs, right? And blood, of course, made primarily of water. When we have something fatty, like omega-5 fatty acids, think about oil in water. It kind of globs together. It doesn't transport very well in liquid blood, right, in the watery blood. But nanoparticles, because like I said earlier, they are soluble in water, they are actually able to stay dissolved in the blood, and that allows them to be transported throughout the body to access different organs. Now we're talking about letting these access the brain specifically. It turns out that in most of the body, the very smallest blood vessels, the capillaries, they're leaky. They let almost anything that's in the blood pass out of the blood and circulate around the tissues so it can access different cells, right? Most of the body, that's what happens. But in the brain and the spinal cord, there's the walls of those tiny little capillaries, rather than being leaky, they're very, very solid. And that's what we call the blood-brain barrier. Instead of just letting anything leak through, whatever happens to be there, the body actually preferentially decides what's going to get across this really solid lining of that blood vessel and pass into the brain, be able to access brain cells. This, of course, is to protect your brain from whatever might be floating around in your blood. Nanoparticles are much more likely to cross the blood-brain barrier, to actually make it from the blood to where the brain cells are. And that's the only way that these substances would be able to cause benefits for brain function, brain longevity, brain health. All right. Now, there's actually one step we need to think about even before you swallow that capsule, right? And that's how stable is it inside of the bottle, right? So it turns out that fatty acids, omega-3s, omega-5s, they are kind of delicate molecules. They break down pretty easily with light, with heat, with oxygen. Packaging them up in nanoparticles, because each nanoparticle is wrapped in that little lipid layer, That helps to protect the fatty acids inside from breaking down. So they last a lot longer. They're a lot more stable inside of the bottle. So the nanoparticles of omega-5 help to make sure more of the omega-5 fatty acid is still in there when you take the capsule. More of it makes it from your gut into your blood. More of it transports through your blood into different organs, and more of it makes it out of that blood into your brain, where you can ultimately get those benefits that you're looking for. So hope that helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us anytime at knowledge@tahiro.com. And as always, we're wishing you great brain health.